Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is a public hearing. The agenda item is a public hearing, and it's an amendment to implement the 2015 comprehensive plan. Persons wishing to be heard at this hearing should sign in on the sign-in sheet at the podium or in the foyer. Persons who do not sign in shall speak after all those who have signed in have given their testimony. 3 minutes will be allowed per person. Public hearing for the proposed amendment to implement the 2015 comprehensive plan. The purpose of this hearing is for the City Council to hear testimony on the proposed 2015 comprehensive plan. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to be heard. Please keep comments to the item that is being discussed. An official recording will be made of what is said at this hearing. Therefore, those addressing the City Council are requested to begin by stating their name and address. Speak clearly into the microphone, one person at a time. This time is for testimony. No debate is allowed. Order of speaking will be staff presentation, testimony from anyone wishing to speak, and then council may speak on hearing topics during the council comments portion of the meeting. At this time, I'd like to introduce Planning Director Jeff Wilson.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Again, for the record, my name is Jeff Wilson, Planning Director for the City of DuPont. And what we have are a series of amendments to 3 different titles in the DuPont Municipal Code. There are portions of Title 22, 25, and 26. 22 related to stormwater regulations within the city, 25 are land use regulations, and 26 are related to our impact fees. And as the mayor had mentioned in the opening comments, these are amendments to our code that were as a result of the adoption of the 2015 comprehensive plan. Comments that we received back from the Department of Commerce and other agencies in terms of what sort of regulations we needed to update in our development code in order to implement that comprehensive plan that was adopted. So I will try and keep this as brief as possible and walk my way through it, but really they're kind of break it down into, on the cover page you see a series of different sections of the code. There's really 9 kind of sections that we relate to. There are 3 that are related to, again, Title 22 related to our stormwater regulations. A simple amendment to Title 25, our table of contents, to show we've added some new sections. We've done an amendment to Title 5.570.020 related to military lands. And we've also proposed an amendment to Title 2560, which is related to our mineral resource overlay. Under 2585 and 2510, we've done some regulations related to the Affordable Housing Incentive Program. That's a new chapter that came out of comments we received on the conference plan. Under Title 25-170, again, and under our definition sections, 2510, we have that language into what constitutes an emergency amendment to our comprehensive plan. This is setting forth procedural standard as what would constitute an amendment. An emergency amendment, we're still subject to the state statutes regarding how often we can amend our comprehensive plan. It just gives us some authority in terms of how to initiate the process. Under 25-115, that's a new title, and that's related to transportation concurrency review, and we've had definitions to go along with that, again, under 2510. And then 2605 is our fire impact fees, and again, that's to implement some changes under through state statute. The council had a public workshop on this, or we had a workshop on this on February 21st, where we went through the draft amendments and responded to some questions. The Planning Commission held 2 workshops on this on July 11th and September 12th of 2016, and then a public hearing on December 12th, 2016. So the proposal that you have before you and the amendments that you have before you are after the workshops and the public hearing by the Planning Commission, and this incorporates all their recommendations and changes into the municipal code. We have forwarded this on to the Department of Commerce, and that occurred in October of 2016, so it's undergone a 6-day review through the Department of Commerce and state agencies. We did not receive any comments back regarding the proposals. And we've also undertaken and completed our environmental review, which is we're responsible to do for any non-project action to amend our code, and that also occurred in October of 2016, and that process was completed in November of 2016. We kind of briefly run through under Title 22, we working with our public works directors, and we may do some additional changes as we look at this in the future for further implementation. We've kind of streamlined our regulations under 2202 for stormwater facilities, kind of streamlining that chapter and appropriate cross references to 2201, which is a predecessor sort of section. 2201 is the stormwater management regulations. We needed an update to make sure we were compliant with the most relevant and adopted documents by the state. They changed from original adoption of this code, and so we're using more relevant, the up-to-date code citations under state statute. And then under 2201, we created a new definition for low-impact development, and again, that's going to implement and tie into the language in the two sections that we amended. Under Title 25, as I said, 25, we've instituted two new chapters, so that's what's included on that page. 25, 57020, this relates to our military lands, and essentially this is implementing a section again out of state statutes where we needed to incorporate a notification process. So whenever we do amendments to our plans, that we would notify the base commander for JBLM so they have an opportunity to participate and comment on our process. And it's really designed to get exchange of ideas to make sure that as an adjoining and basically neighboring community, that they have the opportunity to review, which is what we would do with a normal adjoining jurisdiction. But as federal lands, it's not really spelled out under the codes. So this is a new section now, again, to implement changes into the state statutes. In 2560, this is the mineral resource overlay, and again, this is a provision that implements statutes that were adopted by the state, and really it goes to how we provide notice on adjoining properties when we have mineral resource overlay lands within the city, that we need to provide notice to those adjoining properties that they are adjacent to these areas. They're protected by the state. It's a high priority of the state to protect and preserve these resource lands. And what this is intended to do to make sure that we notify the adjoining property owners of where these lands exist, so that when new development is occurring adjacent to them, they're aware that there's an area that may be actively mined, if it's a mineral resource overlay in our instances. Same thing with forests and other sorts of what have been identified through the state as basically natural resources of statewide significance. And so this is one to make sure that new property owners or new developments going in next door are well aware of what they're moving in next to. Regarding the affordable housing incentive program, and this is, and we've all read over the last couple of years regarding the cost of housing and creating programs and incentives to provide affordable housing. This is a new chapter. It references, again, some guidelines to the state, to the Growth Management Act, in terms of encouraging local jurisdictions to create programs to incentivize affordable housing when new development occurs. This is creating a mechanism that we did not have in the past, and this is providing us a tool. So as new housing developments may occur in the city in the future, we have a tool to help incentivize that some portion of that would meet an affordable standard. And please interrupt me if I go too fast. I'm trying to be, make sure I'm being effective with your time here. Under 25170, and this is an amendment to, again, it's a simple amendment to create a mechanism to what we may term as an emergency amendment to our comprehensive plan. It does not allow us to amend our comprehensive plan more than once a year. That is set out by state statute. It just gives us additional threshold of when we may want to do something at the last minute within a year, that we can institute a process to do an amendment of our plan if there may have been something that either change in circumstances within the jurisdiction, or something maybe changes in the circumstance from adopted state statutes that we may need to implement on an emergency basis. And so this gives us a mechanism in order to undertake that effort. The next new section that was incorporated in here, basically it's providing a transportation concurrency model, basically a program, so how we can evaluate as new development comes on board within the city to make sure that the development does not impact our transportation system, to make sure that the concurrency, basically that the improvements are in place to serve that new development as it comes online. This is providing us tools, mechanisms to basically evaluate the impacts of those new developments, to make sure that we have adequate transportation infrastructure in place to serve that new development when it comes online, to minimize impacts to the existing residents in the city, and to fully serve that new development. And then finally, under 2605, this again, it's something that was required again through the state statutes. There was an amendment to having to do with impact fees that was adopted, I believe, about 2 years ago. And it was to provide a deferral mechanism for small residential developments who came in to have the opportunity to defer any impact fees that the city may have adopted. The only one that we currently have on our book is related to fire impacts, our fire impact mitigation fee. So this is, again, to implement some requirements under state statute to create a deferral mechanism that, so instead of requiring those impact fees be paid up front, it really has the opportunity to defer that to a later point in time to make sure that the building is actually occupied rather than requiring the fees be paid before occupancy occurs on the building. So again, this is something we were directed to do, and so we made the necessary changes to implement that program within our code. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the material that you have before you, and I'll look forward to the answer.
No, that's different. Council was usually asking questions at this time. Does that complete your presentation? Thank you. Okay, next question is to the city clerk. Have there been any written materials that have been submitted, or is there anyone who wishes to submit something in writing without speaking?
None have been submitted.
Okay, thank you. If anyone in the audience has questions on this subject, please don't hesitate to stop by City Hall during business hours or call our main line, and staff will assist you with getting answers to your questions. I'll now call upon persons signed up on the sign-in sheet. If the clerk is not collecting the sign-in sheets. All right, so we have one person signed up on the sign-in sheet, and it's Mr. Ray Kahn, 1852 Johnson Drive. So I would ask Mr. Kahn to come to the podium. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and direct it this time.
Ray Kahn, 1852 Johnson Avenue. As a member of the Tourist Board, I've been working on ideas on how we can get some much needed dollars into the city. And I've been looking around all over America at how people bring attractions to the town. And one that would be pretty good for this area.
Okay.
I did a test.
Mr. Kahn, are you speaking about the comprehensive plan?
No.
No, that's what this is for.
Oh.
There will be another opportunity for public comment.
Thank you.
This is just for this comprehensive plan update. Okay, there's no one else who signed in. Is there anyone who wishes to speak during this public hearing on the comprehensive plan amendments who has not signed in? Okay. Seeing none, then I will, seeing no further testimony, I will close the public hearing at this time. Okay, thank you. At 7:51, yeah, thank you. Okay, now the next item is first opportunity for public comments. And these are on any subject on or off the agenda. And do we have any high school students here today that are here for credit? No, Ray, you're not in high school, I checked. Okay, so just if you haven't been here before, here are the rules. If you're here to get credit, is there only one of you? Two. So the two of you can either both come up and speak either at this opportunity or the next opportunity, but at least one of you must. And we get a lot of very enlightened commentary from high school students, but if you're going to participate in local government, you get to participate. So you guys can Rochambeau or something. Is that my neighbor I see sitting back there? Okay. Yeah, I can put you on the spot, can't I? So anyway, now the period for public comments are now open. Ray, you're welcome to come up.
Got my cough drop here. I haven't got a cough. Anyway, Ray Conn, 1852 Johnson Avenue. As a member of a tourist board, I was thinking of ways that we could bring some much needed cash to the city. And on Facebook last week, well, it's over a week now, I put a couple of feelers out and I had 150 replies back, which is not bad. And they're still coming in. And I asked the question, how would you like to have a Hawaiian night in DuPont in the summer? They all wanted it. When can we have it? So I've been checking around at various places in Washington State that have Hawaiian nights, and they're very, very successful. There's a lot of sponsorship. There's lots of vendors that are selling all sorts of things. Music, dancing, lots of food. And the city of Vancouver in Washington State has a 3-day event, and they experience over 10,000 visits during that period. And they do make a lot of money. But the thing is that everybody has a good time. It's a very happy occasion. And I think with the clock tower, the facilities we have there, and we know that a lot of people from Washington State go to Hawaii. I'm going twice this year, and I know your mother's just come back. So, every time we're over there, we recognize people from Washington State, from DuPont, and other towns. And that's just, we only go to Kauai, but you've got the 5 islands, I think. So there's a lot of the culture from there that's actually over here. And I believe that DuPont has a link to Hawaii anyway, through the Hudson Bay at that time. There was a lot of Hawaiian workers here. So it's just a thought, and I'm going to reply to the people after our next tourist board meeting to see if there's any interest on our side. But if there's anything that anybody can help us with and give us some ideas, if it's not too late this year, then for next year, I'll certainly do my part and visit places that I can using my new tourism board. Jack,
You're going to go to Hawaii for us?
yeah, go to Hawaii for you. So I think it would be a good thing to have once a year. So just a thought.
Thank you, Ray, and I'm sure Amy Walker will be excited to discuss this in great detail. As will my mother. Okay, are there any other public comments?
David Bunger, 2702 Arthur Street. There's some major construction going on in the area, in the county, in South King County. And if you pick up a Tacoma Weekly this week, there's a great article about what's happening in the tide flats right next to Fife. What's truly amazing is that the planning for this project took over 2 years. And I've actually gone to one of the on-site open houses where the developer invited the residents to come. So just some highlights from this article. One of the last large swaths of undeveloped land. Massive industrial warehouse complex, which will include street improvements to streamline traffic to and from the facility. Eliminating or calming traffic snarls created by the added traffic and trucks flowing into the area. The size and location of this project meant several had interest in what happened to the property. Where many of its residents were worried about traffic problems and noise levels generated at the complex, we wanted to slow and make sure we heard from everyone and included that into the design process. There are 30 mitigations and additional 24 advisory notes. listed for the project. The most obvious of these mitigations is the construction of a 14-foot tall landscape berm along 12th Avenue. This will also include an 8-foot solid fence to address noise, light, and aesthetics to the residents and businesses. The roadway itself will be widened from a 2-lane street to one that offers a 3rd lane for traffic entering and exiting the area, the complex, and the supporting arterial streets. Everywhere you go, they're doing it right. You can't do it right in DuPont. We only do what the developer wants. Please, since 2014, we have been asking you to create a truck route for this property, so the developer must comply. We do not want trucks down the new South Loop Road. We do not want trucks coming through Center Drive. If you establish a truck route that comes exit 19, wherever that's going to be, Wharf Road, Power Line Road, Center Drive, Civic Drive, they will develop it. That will actually alleviate the Amazon issue. Amazon could piggyback off of that. You could then amend your truck route to I think it's International or the other street. So please be proactive and stop serving the developers. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments?
Hi, I'm Dave Lindeblum. I'm actually from Lacey, and my guest, Bruce Price, stand up. He's from Olympia. He's here working on a merit badge for Boy Scouts of America. And we came to your city council instead of our own because we have a friend on your council, Roger Westman. And because I've participated in some DuPont events in the past, at various community or town events that some of your other people have talked about. I've been there. I think he has, or his brother has, as clowns. So if you need another one. And the other comment was, I can still remember getting my 3rd grade dictionary, Thorndike Barnhart Dictionary. I don't know if it was the Lions, but it was something. So that's basically what we're here for, and I just wanted him to be recognized as to what he's working on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Pierce, 1848 North Drive.
Brenda Andrews, 1169 Harrington Place.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're here tonight representing a group of local LuLaRoe consultants. And I know it kind of sounds weird to have us here at this council meeting, but after the fire happened last week, we had already had a planned event. We were going to do a multi-consultant sale at Liberty Inn, now at Best Western, this coming Saturday. And we came up with the idea that we were going to talk with LuLaRoe and actually turn it into a fundraiser for that family, being a small business ourselves and all these owners that are here in DuPont. And so we just wanted to basically let you guys know, and others out there in the community, stop by from 11 to 4 at Best Western. And LuLaRoe has committed to matching our fundraising efforts. So we're very excited, and hopefully this will be a successful event for that family. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
My name is Leilani Nesses, and I am a student at Slocum High School. And I am just going to make comment on the recent fire that took place as well. And I think that creating awareness for prevention and action plans and escape plans is really important, and especially in high school students as we go on to college, that it's something that we should really be aware of since we'll be on our own. And I was very unaware that the sprinklers gave you 7 to 10 minutes of escape time, so that was something that I found out very interesting from them.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Okay, here consent agenda. Council, a motion would be in order. We have a motion from Councilmember Coffey. We have a second from Councilmember Gassick. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Thank you, Council. There are no discussion items, so it's time for my report. I have a few items to cover. Council, I got an email today. You probably got it at home. Our PDC forms are due 14 April, so just a reminder that's something we all have to do for the new council members this year. That's just one of those annual events you get to do. Council, I've had the privilege of interviewing the two nominees from the Planning Commission for 2 of the 3 vacancies on the Planning Commission. Very productive meetings with both individuals today, and I'll be forwarding those to you on 28 March for your consideration and approval. I appreciate your feedback on my questions to you regarding ALS, and what my intent is that in the month of April, we'll bring you a brief updated presentation with a recommendation at the 18 April workshop. We will cover it in more detail, and I'll see if we can get some of the task force members available to be there just to participate and answer questions specific to the report recommendation. On the 25th of April, we will plan a public hearing, and I'll be requesting a vote from the council at that time. And my intent would be, on the presumption of a favorable vote by the council, that we will then, through the period May through July, have town hall meetings to provide the public more opportunity to comment on the proposal, and we'll continue our public information effort, which quite honestly has gone very well to this point. We'll continue to do that to inform people as much as possible, and ideally we would be postured for a 1 August vote. It was released in the press today, or not today, this week, and it's been out on social media, but I just wanted to formally announce that, first of all, it's with some sadness, but great respect that our Chief of Police, Bob Sheehan, will be retiring on 31 May after 157 years of law enforcement work. But if you saw, and I say that in jest, but a long and distinguished career that has really brought some great changes to law enforcement in the city of DuPont. We're excited, we're pleased, and you're not retired yet. We're looking forward to the celebration, but you still got time at work. And after consultation with council, with staff, with Chief Sheehan, with the police union, I'm very proud to announce that I'm nominating Lieutenant Larry Holt to succeed Chief Bob Sheehan as the Chief of Police for the city of DuPont. And my intention is to bring that nomination to the council on 28 March for your consideration and vote. I think we're really fortunate to have such a superb law enforcement professional to articulate to our position of chief. For the council members, I don't think you've seen this, but the Association of Washington Cities asked me to solicit all of you for board of directors positions. 2017 AWC Board of Directors recruitment effort is ongoing. There are a couple positions at large. It's not a high volume of work and stuff, but it represents our city and some important issues. And if you have any interest at all, I've got the information. Applications would need to be submitted online by Friday, 24 March. And so let me know if you have any interest in that at all. I think it's a good organization, and our voice could well be heard on that. Just to let everyone know that the bill that Representative Murray was sponsoring on behalf of the city of DuPont, House Bill 1175, did not get out of committee again this year. It got farther. It spent longer. I got to testify on it twice. This was a bill that would have given the city of DuPont the authority to, through a vote of the public, raise a sales tax commensurate with Pierce Transit, which currently is 0.6%, or 0.6%. And that would have been used specifically for public transportation for the city of DuPont. As you know, we don't have any local public transportation, and nor has Pierce Transit shown any real interest in coming down, as far as I understand it, from a business model standpoint. And just so everyone knows, we're not done with this effort. It gets a little farther. I have sent letters to both the county executive and the governor asking for their support in the future. It seems ironic or even hypocritical to me that in a state that just, or in a three-county region that just voted to spend $54 billion on a transportation system that we will directly benefit from in 20 years, that we would not be afforded the authority to spend our own money to do some local public transportation. And again, it's a question of authority and giving that to you, the citizens, to make a decision. And we will continue that effort in upcoming legislative sessions. Other very important information I have to share with you. I understand that socially, it's not appropriate to discuss a woman's birthday once she matures to the age of 39. And I believe that for men, it probably must be about 49. So I want to acknowledge the anniversary of our city administrator's birthday today. This is, yeah. We won't say which anniversary this is, but he has at least matured to the age of 49 and then some. And so I would, at this point in time, ask you to join me in happy birthday for Ted. No, you can't do it, I'm sorry. So, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Ted, happy birthday to you. All right, I only get to do that to her once a year. Glad you're with us. And another significant note for those of you that like to celebrate important dates in history, once again, today's Pi Day. And so if you're a fan of the numerical constant pi and all it means, this is a great day for celebration. Okay, with that, I think I've done enough damage with my report for the evening. Next is the City Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I had a short version and a long version, so now we do the long version. The fire chief made a good presentation. I'll remind everybody in the audience and watching on TV, we do this all the time in the fire department. We have that beautiful trailer, the fire marshal, the chief, the firefighters that we have, give all kinds of education. You can always request it and also watch the fire department's Facebook and website for times and events. Another good way to do that is through the community village policing program. The community connectors that they have, bringing the village together has been amazing. And it's not just police matters. They talk about fire, they talk about streets, public works. It's anything you want. So please take the time to check out a community connector meeting in your village. It will be well worth your time. It seems to be Public Safety Day, Coffee with the Chiefs. And Chief Sheehan, I want to remind everybody that both the fire and the police chief will be Thursday, March 16th. From 5 to 7 at Forza. So if you have any questions or want to talk about any issues with either of the chiefs, come on down. Had a very good meeting with the Lacey Southtown Chamber of Commerce and Mr. Rick Beaver, a retired businessman in DuPont. As many of you know, the DuPont Business Association is disbanded. A number of businesses are looking at possibly forming or joining a Chamber of Commerce. So we went down there and listened to Lacey Southtown. We'll take there's 3 sets of 2. We're going out to different agencies. So stand by for more, but if you're a business in DuPont, I urge you to get in contact with me and I'll put you in touch with the steering committee. The object of the exercise is after all these teams go out and do research, the businesses want to present to themselves at sort of a business town hall or business get together and see what the temperatures of the businesses. So I just wanted to let everybody know as you go through DuPont and talk to businesses, let them know to get in touch with me and I can get them in these are the process if you wish. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Danik. Council reports. Councilmember Coffey.
Yes, I attended the Stillwater Historical School District study session last week, and they discussed they're moving into developing a long-range capital facility plan, which will include development of properties in DuPont over the next 15 to 20 years. So,
Excellent.
stay tuned.
Councilmember Easton.
Wanted to remind everyone that the tree board is going to be doing a planting project on Center Drive. Has the date changed for that, Gus? Was that the same? Okay, that's coming up March 25th, which is not this Saturday, but next Saturday at 10 a.m. You can meet right here at City Hall. You'll fill out the paperwork, and then we will be planting trees and some of the items in the medians down towards Edmond Village, close to Silver and DuPont Road. So if you're interested in that, come on out and we'll beautify the medians there. Also, I wanted to recognize, I said that this at a previous council meeting, but I wanted to say it while it was televised. Thank you to Jeff Brownell, who served on the tree board. He has stepped down, and so we have an opening. If anybody is interested in participating, we meet once a month, and the highly qualified volunteers who are coming up with some great ideas throughout the city and really making things happen. So I wanted to say thank you to Jeff for his willingness to volunteer and everything that he's contributed to making the tree situation in DuPont better than it was before he came. On a separate note, I went to the Planning Commission meeting yesterday. Councilman Corp was away, so I stood in for him as liaison, and it was a good meeting. It was held right here, and the Planning Commission was continuing their work on the critical area ordinances update, so they are continuing to work on that. So if anybody has an interest in providing public comment to that, their meetings have gone to 2 times a month, and I believe that there are some public meetings that are going to be coming up. So keep looking at the city website for updates on when those are going to occur.
Okay, seeing no other council reports, we have no unfinished business. We have 2 items of new business. We have first readings for 2 ordinance amendments to DuPont Municipal Code. First one is an ordinance amendment to section 9.20.030 regarding the term special events. This will be our first reading, and I would ask the city attorney, Mr. Carr, to come forward. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for having me here this evening. So a few months ago, we presented to you and passed a comprehensive overhaul of the special events ordinance. We moved it into our public safety title under 920. We've been working with the police department as well as with our tourism recreation folks to develop the processes around that process, basically how you go about actually applying for a permit, the information needed, that kind of thing. During that process, we discovered that our original definition for the term special event, as was laid out in that original ordinance, was simply insufficient. It was vague. It lacked flexibility for the wide variety of events we do see in the city. So I did a comprehensive survey of Western Washington cities and looked through their special events permits and ginned up this new definition that you have before you, which is much more comprehensive. It's going to cover a lot more ground than our original one, which was simply both vague and overbroad. This is a little more pinpointed, a little more specific, and gives greater clarity both for the staff as well as for the citizenry as to what is or is not a special event. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Deputy Mayor Weston.
Yes, I appreciate the effort in order to put some definition to special events. However, having to do with the definition that you have there under 1(9), could we have some sort of definition as we go into our second reading on what is a substantial impact? That's very, very vague, and can be interpreted by a variety of people in a variety of different ways. So I'd really appreciate that being tightened up a little bit. Secondly, a definition of what you mean by a public right-of-way. Are we talking about the curb? Are we talking about the parking area? What is the right-of-way? Is it the road, or is it a path, or exactly what is that? And it also indicates a substantial impact on the surrounding neighborhood. So is that, how extensive is that neighborhood? Now, the reason I'm asking all this is that my wife and I have put on block parties before. We have put on block parties in support of the National Night Out. And we do use the parking strip, and we do have neighbors that come and it is a neighborhood gathering together in order to know our neighbors and to be able to get names and addresses and phone numbers, so in case some sort of impact does happen within our neighborhood, we can be responsive. Very similar to what the connector program under the police department is attempting to do. So I'm very concerned about the definition of these block parties. And if it's going to be a situation where, yes, block parties, regardless of where they're held, either on public right-of-ways or private landscape, then a permit evidently has to be obtained. And if so, is there a cost to that? Now, if a block party is in support of a community event, such as the National Night Out, I would suggest that a waiver of those fees be granted so that we are encouraging our neighborhoods to come together and become familiar and to have that joy of interacting with neighbors. So with that in mind, there's also the athletic event and also parade. So to me, there is some vagueness yet. And so as we proceed, I do want to encourage the development of such a chapter. It is necessary, it is needed, but to be a little bit more refined in our definition.
Would you like me to respond?
Excuse me?
Would you like me to respond?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm not ignoring, I'm pulling up on my tape,
that's
I'm here to
fine.
hear the other definition of the statute. So block party has already been defined, and it's already codified in the law at this point. And it's outside the scope of this particular amendment, but I'm happy to discuss it here in a second. As to your first concern, substantial impact, I'm happy to go back to the police and the parks and see if we want to maybe tighten that up, but I will say substantial impact is a term of art used in multiple ordinances, and really what it means is something more than little or nothing. Substantial is generally defined as, if you think of almost in terms of like burdens of proof, for example, right? Because remember, all this is geared toward someone challenges and says, well, this isn't a substantial impact, I don't need that. Substantial impact is generally thought of in terms of towards those kind of challenges as being more than 50%, right? So I don't got to, so we would have to demonstrate when we say substantial. That's not like a minor inconvenience or just some noise, that it has an impact that's going to be felt in a realistic and meaningful way for people surrounding it. Now, if you want me to try to tighten that up, I can, but typically substantial is thought of as a term of art in court cases. So that's the first piece. The second piece is, although like I said, let me go back to my principles and I'll see what we can do. As far as public right-of-way, that is very much a term of art, and it has a very specific definition. The definition is any publicly owned property that is thought of, that has a general easement for the public, e.g. sidewalks, roads, trails. So anything the city owns that we have a general easement, the public is allowed and encouraged to enter it and transfer it and move across it or transport themselves through it, that's a public right-of-way. And that's a very, very well-defined definition throughout Washington State, throughout U.S. law, in fact. As to your block party concerns, again, that definition is already there, it's already in place. But what I will say is, if there is a situation where a private party is interfering with that exact same public right-of-way, that easement, that everyone has a right to walk on, then it's not unreasonable for the city to say, hey, why don't you get a permit? So at the for no other reason, we can put some signs up and people know not to walk to the sidewalk because they're using it right now, and that's fine. As for a waiver of fees, we do have provisions already in this law that would allow the city administrator or the police department to waive fees for a while, particularly if it's a situation where it's of the public health benefit, that kind of thing. And this kind of thing you're talking about would be waived. And in fact, block parties in the ordinance itself already are waived of any fee, specifically block parties, because we do want to encourage people to go ahead and have those parties and have that community. So we've already waived the fee for block parties specifically. We just ask that if you're going to use the street or going to use the sidewalk, you get a permit from us, so that if nothing else, we can have PD come out, make sure things are safe, put out some signs, that kind of thing. So I hope that alleviates some of those concerns, but I will take this back to my principals and let them know.
Sure, it helps a lot. The substantial impact, it reminds me of several citizen complaints I received having to do with the music that was involved with this walk for cancer
Yes.
that took place over at Pioneer Middle School, and where that went on into the late hours of the evening and very loud. So I can understand that as possibly falling within that area. But here again, thank you very much for answering my concerns, and as we move into second reading, hopefully I feel a little bit more comfort in approving of the chapters.
Sure. Thank you so much.
I think City Administrator Danick wanted to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, I didn't get the tail on Mr. Carter's presentation on the interim council. One thing I want to stress is there's a number of things going on. First of all, the special events ordinance overhaul is moving us really from the way we used to do business to the way we should be doing business, and it's around public safety. So the block parties, the small events, 50, 60 people in the park, that's really not the thrust of this. The thrust of this is when you get 2,000 or 3,000 lions in Clock Tower Park, where you have 2,000 or 3,000 runners that wear blue, where you have 3,000 or 4,000 at 4th of July. We need to protect the public, and this ordinance will do that. And I also want to mention that the staff has injected a lot of common sense into the ordinance, and that is the chief of police is the one that has the authority to waive some fees, to make modifications. And again, I think that's very helpful, and that would be more or less the appellate authority if you didn't like what the chief said, you come to me. And then the third thing is, it's going to take a while to get used to. This is not the way we used to do business. Deputy Mayor Weston, you've got a lot of questions, you've done events, you already, this is what we're going to get. So we're not going to implement this with a hammer and, go from 0 to 100 all in one night. We will educate the public. And lastly, apart from the special events ordinance, we're working on the policy to implement and execute the ordinance. It's going to be a lot better. There's a handout. People will be able to apply. Staff will look at it. You will know long before your event how much you're going to cost, what steps you need to take, and we'll be with them through the process. So this is a great improvement, but I did want to warn you, it's much different than the way we used to do it. So get ready, and also remember, we're not going to do this overnight.
Okay, hearing no more council questions, we will move. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll move to the second item of new business, the ordinance amendments to the Dupont Municipal Code, Titles 12, 22, 25, and 26 regarding the 2015 comprehensive plan. This will be our first reading of the plan director, Jeff Wilson. Reminder council, this is what we're just doing public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We've gone through the content of the document, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding this, and ask that the council can move this for consideration again on the March 28th agenda.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Easton.
Jeff, could you tell us a little bit about what the affordable housing gist is? I mean, the way I'm reading it, it sort of means that if a developer wants to get a little bit, or wants to encourage lower income housing, then it's a matter of increased density, is that correct? Or
Essentially, it's an incentive type of program, and it's not unusual where you would incentivize a development to give them additional density as an incentive to provide some percentage of that development as affordable housing. It's very commonplace. It's used a lot extensively in new developments. You create incentive programs to achieve something of a public benefit by giving something back to the developer in order to encourage them to provide that. It would be a public benefit. In this case, you're absolutely correct, Councilmember Reestead, it's looking at increased density as a way to incentivize providing some portion share of that for community affordable housing standards.
And it's already on multi-family housing. Is there zoning that applies to where these go, or where might we expect to see?
You would probably end up seeing, you could see it both in multifamily, you could see it in single family as well, as a way to, you want to have diversity type of ownership patterns within the city, and so you may incentivize additional density in single family residential areas, or to allow some portion, again, if those are going to meet our definition and standards for affordable housing, and to maintain it as that kind of stock and make it available for citizens within the community.
So realistically, we're talking residential reserve here, as far as implications of.
Yeah, in terms of true implications, it would be, we still have a couple of small areas, of pockets of land that are available, some of which are already moving forward, but it's really looking towards the future of our predominantly residential reserve area that we have around the Copperton property, yes, as that converts.
Thank you.
Councilmember Coffey.
Yes, on that same line, the definition of affordable housing, and it's without spending more than 30% of monthly household income, and they're applying the Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue metropolitan
Statistical area, yes.
Well, there's a huge difference between Bellevue and Tacoma, and that just seems kind of extreme.
Well, part of that is based off of the Tacoma, Pierce County falls within the Seattle, Tacoma metropolitan statistical area. It's a defined area under federal law, so it's one place where we know that there's data that's collected versus we don't have maybe neighborhood-specific or city-specific data that would allow us to apply that. And you are correct, but it's kind of a universal place that we would look to in terms of identifying that standard. To do something different than that, we would have to create a mechanism of which we're going to have to go through and then upkeep and be able to monitor and change and evaluate as circumstances change as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hilder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a few questions also on this affordable housing amendment. So say theoretically a developer commits to building affordable housing on a plot. Are they then able to build at that 50% density bonus regardless of what we've zoned it, what the city has zoned it at?
This gives the ability, yes, to increase that potential density. So if we had it zoned as 4 units per acre and they want to take advantage of this, then you might see that they would have six units per acre to get that additional density bonus. Correct.
Okay.
And partly it's the economies of scale that as you develop more units, you help to drive the cost down in that construction. That's what helps with the affordability component.
Okay. Secondly, having to do with subsection 040. Again, so theoretically, a developer records a tract with the auditor as affordable, and they don't make any improvements on the land. That agreement, if I read this correctly, is a covenant running with the land and shall be binding on the assigned heirs and successors of the applicant. So whoever purchases or inherits, potentially even that land, will be obligated to develop it with affordable housing?
If they're going to take advantage of the affordable housing component. If they wanted to come back and modify the project and permit and eliminate that affordable housing component, then they would be developing just under normal code requirements.
So they wouldn't be bound to what the initial...
Again, they would need to go through a process in order to try to amend those underlying permits and amend this agreement. But once it is entered into, generally they're going to have a development that's going to be moving forward, and it's intended to have it run with the land, so that as those units, when they are developed, there's not a question 10, 20 years from now whether or not what component of that is supposed to be affordable housing, so that there's a record of it as people are purchasing the property, they know which units are going to be market rate, which units are supposed to be affordable units as well.
Okay, and then posted related to that, the next section, 060. Affordable housing units that are provided under this section shall remain as affordable housing for a minimum of 50 years. And then it continues on a little bit. Again, so if someone was to develop then that housing and then was to sell that property, or someone's family member was to inherit property, they would have to keep that property as affordable housing for 50 years.
Correct.
No, it's not.
In comply with that particular standard, yes.
Just wanted to make sure I'm reading that correctly. And lastly, under definitions again, I think we spoke about this at the workshop, and then Councilmember Coffey alluded to it again. I can't get over the vagueness, I guess, of the last sentence here. Income level eligibility thresholds. Threshold levels shall be set using HUD levels for the Seattle-Tacoma Bellevue metropolitan statistical area. Are we able to make amendments to this? And if so, could we make it clear that what we're talking about with low income, I'm assuming, is what we're referring to. We could say 80% of the adjusted median income, which is the definition that's in statute. It just looks like we're saying 30% of monthly household income, and then we're pegging it to the Seattle-Tacoma Bellevue metropolitan area without saying what affordable actually means. What low income level threshold triggers that.
Councilmember Heller, if you could help me for a second so I can make sure I can find the right section. So
Yeah, that's the definitions, the last part. Sorry.
Councilmember Heller, you're asking if we can use a different definition.
Or just clarify that what we're talking about would be, we're saying you may spend no more than 30% of your monthly household income. And then the next sentence is income level eligibility threshold levels shall be set using HUD levels for the Seattle-Tacoma Bellevue metropolitan statistical area. I guess I don't know what that means. It's not a phrase I've seen before dealing with this issue. So I don't know if I'm really clear on what that's telling me as far as what low income is.
In very lay terms, I'm gonna have Mr. Wilson correct me if I move this up. So there's a chart and it gets published, and you go through the line and you figure out what that median income is. You do 30% monthly, and it's pretty easy math.
Right.
The problem is when it's written in ordinance, it looks completely confusing. But I want to get back and see, so if that definition is not working for you, are you asking, could we use our own definition of affordable housing? Is that what you're asking?
Well, affordable housing is spending no more than 30%. Right, an income threshold. Because I'm seeing that we're using income level eligibility levels set using the HUD levels for the Seattle-Tacoma Bellevue metropolitan area, but I don't know where in that chart we're going to look. I know I'm looking at 30% of your income, but I don't know what income level we're looking at. Does that make sense?
It does, and maybe I'll have to show you the chart.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of difficult without looking at the chart, but I mean, it is going to, that level is going to fluctuate as the economy changes, and that's why we're using a published HUD chart, because that becomes our tool to use. And it's making sure that as a person going there is not having to spend more than 30% of their income in order to be able to afford that particular unit on their monthly income. There's not a magic number that's a constant, so it's constantly evaluated and reviewed. I'd be happy to take a look at it in more detail, between now and when we come back on the 28th, and we can look to pull up that information to give you an example of what that might be, so we're all looking at the same chart. We can use a numbers comparison.
Yeah, I guess all I'm saying is, if someone is making $1 million, are we going to then build housing that's affordable for them if they're only spending $300,000 of their income? You know what I mean? So there's like an income level.
And this is, Councilmember Heller, it's a great point. I mean, I've wrestled with affordable housing for probably 30 years of my career, and we went through it because there's a number of ways you can look at affordable housing. Is it based off of income? Is it based off of assets? There's a number of different ways of what you look at. Someone may be income poor, or may meet the threshold in income levels to be affordable housing, but they're very asset rich, which means they really don't need the unit. And there's no perfect tool, and I found this number of jurisdictions where we look for this about how to try and do it without making it incredibly complicated. So this is probably the most basic sort of level, and it's really getting down to an individual, their disposable income, and making sure that we're not, that housing is not going to eat up more of their disposable income than necessary to allow them to be able to live in a community. So So that's why, and that's why it's really went to the income level.
Councilman Gorski.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, looking at chapter 25.115, the new chapter for transportation concurrency review. My question is this limited to the TMA? Is this residential only? This has any impact on commercial development?
Let me go to that section real quick and I'll catch up with you. Under transportation concurrency, it's related to all development that happens within the jurisdiction. So whether it be residential, commercial, we have to make sure that our infrastructure is in place to be able to handle that development when it comes online.
Right, and what I'm not seeing is any, and maybe I haven't read it thoroughly enough, so I can see that, but the only mentions of development seems to be talking about subdivision and residential lots. And I don't know if our commercial development would fall into that, because then we get into the specifics of the number of trips generated in and out of these plats. And if we include our commercial development, then we're looking at some very specific pigeonholing of the type of businesses that can go in there if we're counting the number of trips they're taking. And from my understanding, and I do plead some ignorance on this, it's also talking about what the impact is on existing developments as well, if I'm not mistaken. So if we add in a commercial development and some of that traffic is now diverted onto other roads, and I guess it gets around the definition of what is a traffic facility or a transportation facility and how are we defining that? Because my concern is in areas that we still have undeveloped that are not slated as residential per se, or are minority residential primarily of commercial, light industrial, what is the real impact? And can we get a summary of what that would be based on what is left in the city yet to be developed?
You have a series of questions there, so I'm going to try and get them in order as much as I can.
I'm sorry about that.
So please, so please correct me if I happen to miss part of it. Under 25.115.020, yes, the first one on that list has to do with subdivisions or short plats, but the next two are not tied to residential development at all. We have site plan review; those relate to commercial activities. Plus, we just have a trip generation threshold could be some other sort of project. So it's meant to cover the full breadth and width of type of development that we may have in this city. We just identified different sort of thresholds. Subdivisions are very easy. You wouldn't necessarily do it with a single-family building permit. You would do it when land is subdivided to create those lots, and that's when you're going to be looking at making sure that you have the adequate infrastructure in place to support that new development when it comes in. When we do the site plan review on a commercial development, then we go and analyze the traffic that is generating. That kind of falls into the B and C scenario where we have, again, two different thresholds that we're looking at that apply to anything other than necessarily single family, but it would apply to multifamily. It would apply to commercial, industrial, retail. So that's where B and C come into that mix of the question there for you. The second part of your question, if you could begin to remind me so I can be clear to answer that correctly.
I think I voiced a general concern that I don't understand if we're going to be pigeonholing ourselves, but to define really what a transportation facility is.
We have a definition, and that's it's attachment 13 in your packet. It's the definition portions that go along with our concurrency model. It's following that chapter you're just reading through. It's 2510. We have definitions, and under the T definitions for 2510.200, there's a definition of transportation facilities, and that means arterials and transit routes owned, operated, or administered by the state of Washington and its political subdivisions such as the city of DuPont. Then we talk about existing transportation facilities as well as planned transportation facilities. So it takes into account those things that are already on the books versus those for planning and anticipation of future development.
Right, and so that speaks more to infrastructure, but it doesn't talk about signaling or anything like that. Is that covered in this as well, or am I missing it?
It is all, I mean, that's part of what we look at as a total package of transportation facilities. It's not just the capacity of a particular road, it's a capacity moving through an intersection and making sure that the signals are set to meet our level of service standards. We can't drop below those, but we define an intersection that has capacity to move the traffic through based on the volumes and the timing necessary to maintain our our level of service standards.
Okay, so that would be covered under level of service, so it's the totality of the lanes usage, the flow that we would maintain, and then lighting and safety, other aspects that we have currently established, and then we're maintaining.
So it's one more tool, it's one more opportunity. This gives us a tool to look at that, making sure and ensuring that those facilities are in place to handle new development as it comes online.
Okay, one last question, and briefly, it's in section 25-115-040, and it talks about a finding of concurrency shall expire if the underlying building permit expires or is revoked by the city. Is that the building permit being revoked, or the finding of concurrency is revoked?
Let me read through that real quick. So that's 25-115-040.
Correct. And that's the third paragraph.
The third paragraph. Basically, when a building permit comes in, we would issue a determination of concurrency based on that building permit. So if that permit expires or is revoked for any way, shape, or form, that project essentially goes away. So the concurrency that was issued as part of that project then goes away as well.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification.
Councilmember Easton.
Chapter 22.01, stormwater management regulations and requirements. I'm wondering, in general terms, would our infrastructure, our stormwater management facilities be in compliance with this, should it pass?
I may defer to Mr. Lim. I mean, when we modify this particular section, is making sure that we're using the most current stormwater manual, so that our references and our standards and developments come in have to abide by the most current stormwater manual. Regarding our existing facilities, Mr. Lim.
Right, the biggest change for this was essentially changing from the 2000, reference of the 2005 Department of Ecology Stormwater Management 2012. The other items in here relate to new development, such as minimum requirements and what have you. So we would fit under all this. I mean, we're very fortunate in a very, I guess, rocky situation where we're almost like the poster child for low impact development, really when it comes down to it. So we would.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that with the updates in the definitions, for sure, being in compliance with this new stormwater management manual. So I did see that in the chapter, and I thought that was interesting because we just wholly got rid of them and just applied it to the manual's definitions, so that's fine. And the reason I ask is, I mean, we just spent a pretty hefty sum to modify some of our existing stormwater facilities, and I want to make sure we're not setting ourselves up for, more work that needs to be done. Clearly, protecting the resource is important, but just to be in compliance with the, what's written, I want to make sure we're not, going to have issues with that.
I think Councilmember Easton, but I think, Mr. Lim would agree. I mean, it's kind of an obligatory update that we have to do in our code, and because we reference a year and the new manuals come out, we have to make sure that we reference our code to the current standards in place. So it's an obligation on our part.
All right, and then the follow-up, and I'm not sure that it really belongs here, but I wonder if there could be some mention of rainwater catchment. Perhaps it falls in the stormwater management, I'm not sure. But, I mean, that is something that people are talking about so far as catching rainwater and using it for non-potable uses. If there's a lot of warehouse roof that's catching a lot of square footage of rainwater, it can be put to a beneficial use. I mean, the state allows it. So I'm not sure that it belongs here, but I'd ask that you sort of think about that and see if there's something that we can fit in there where that rainwater can, instead of being infiltrated, it can be put to use watering grass or whatever the developer needs. Just if we can make it easier to do that, I'd like to see that. So.
I appreciate the comment, Councilmember Easton. What I'd like to do, and not necessarily as part of this project, because I still want to work with Mr. Lim as we move forward and even look at other additional tweaks and maybe do that. And we can take that into consideration, how to build that in under any sort of model that we may need, and any other changes we might have to do, not only in this particular chapter, but then I'd also want to take a look at our building codes to see if there's anything we need to modify in there as well.
Yeah, and rainwater gardens is what most citizens would recognize as putting that to beneficial use. But from a commercial standpoint, that, it could be, it would be nice just to have it easier for them to accomplish that.
Okay, seeing no more council questions or comments, I'd like to thank Mr. Wilson. Great. You were quite the utility infielder for the last 20 minutes. Okay, this is our second and final opportunity for public comments. Rules remain the same. Please come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes on any subject on or off the agenda.
David Munger, 2702 MacArthur Street. Two items. We not have a relay for life event at Pioneer Middle School. As Councilman Westman said, the loud noise, the regional committee has decided not to host the new pond. There will be other events and fundraisers, but having the police come and shut down the event each year annually, it's going to be at Harry Lang Stadium. The other issue on the ALS. I'm all for 2 ballots in August and an issue for the ALS in November. Last year, it has been presented to you what the B&O tax is for. It has been recommended that you do a B&O tax increase on extraction only to 3%. There are many property owners that contract and get money from Cal Portland but pay nothing. You can charge a ton tax. You can charge an acre tax. I'm not asking a lot. This was all presented to you last year. It's all on video. It's all going to be on the website. April, we all pay our property tax, ST3. God love them. Well, all of our residents are going to get an escrow letter that don't pay their taxes. They're going to get an escrow letter. And then you're going to ask for them in August to fund ALS. As I have said and other citizens have said, there's no votes for ALS. However, for the entire decade on ALS, you have done nothing but come to the citizens. In August, council, have the citizens vote to increase the B&O tax on extraction only, on property owners that own property that is being extracted. Help them. And then in November, after you beta test both programs or whatever, because right now you're just asking for money and you have no proof it's going to work. Presently, you cannot staff the fire engine. Prove that it's going to work, and then let's move forward. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more public comments, council comments. We've reached threshold. Okay. Hey, I just want to make one final comment that I want to thank both the staff and the council tonight. I thought this was, in my 5.5 years up at this dais, some real thoughtful discussions tonight, some very tough questions. Staff, you fielded my pros. I thank you for that. Council, you obviously did your homework, and you came with some very thoughtful, provocative questions, and this is what local government is supposed to be, so I appreciate everyone who did that. I think we're better for it, so thank you very much. And with that, I will adjourn the council meeting at 8:51.